The jungle explodes with gunfire. It's 3:47 a.m. on May 11, 1945, near Dingalan Bay, Luzon, Philippine Islands. Private John McKinney jolts awake as something slashes across his skull, a Japanese saber. Blood pours into his eyes. Through the chaos, he sees the nightmare unfolding around him. 100 Japanese soldiers are inside the American perimeter. They're not charging blindly. This is a coordinated infiltration attack, executed in near total silence until the last possible moment. The machine gun nest that McKinney has been manning all night, the defensive position that protects 70 sleeping American soldiers from Company A, 123rd Infantry Regiment, is now in enemy hands. 10 Japanese infantrymen swarm the emplacement, wrestling the weapon around to fire into the American lines. What happens next defies every tactical manual ever written. In the darkness, dazed from the head wound, McKinney stands alone between 100 enemy soldiers and his sleeping comrades. The odds are overwhelming. The outcome seems inevitable. Company A is about to be massacred in their sleep. But the Japanese soldiers don't know something crucial about the bleeding Georgia farm boy standing before them. They don't know that John McKinney spent his entire childhood tracking game through the backwoods of Screven County. They don't know he learned to shoot before he learned to read. And they certainly don't know that in the next 36 minutes, this barely educated hunter with only a rifle and a nearly supernatural calm is about to deliver the most devastating one-man defensive stand of the entire Pacific War. What McKinney doesn't know, what he can't possibly know as he wipes blood from his eyes and steadies his M1 Garand rifle, is that every decision he makes in the next half hour will be studied by military tacticians for the next 8 decades. He doesn't know that his improvised combat techniques will influence modern close-quarters battle doctrine. He doesn't know that the President of the United States will soon call his actions one of the most remarkable examples of courage and determination in the entire war. All he knows is this: his friends are sleeping 50 yards behind him, and there are 100 enemy soldiers between him and them. The machine gun position must be retaken. The perimeter must hold. And Private John Randolph McKinney is the only man standing. The jungle erupts. McKinney charges forward. By May 1945, the liberation of the Philippines has become a grinding, brutal campaign that's consuming American lives at an alarming rate. General Douglas MacArthur's promise to return has been fulfilled, but the cost is staggering. On Luzon alone, American forces face an estimated 275,000 Japanese troops who have abandoned conventional warfare in favor of suicidal infiltration tactics designed to maximize American casualties. The Japanese strategy on Luzon represents a calculated shift in imperial doctrine. Traditional banzai charges, mass frontal assaults designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers, have proven catastrophically ineffective against American firepower. At Tarawa, nearly 4,700 Japanese soldiers died in futile charges against prepared positions. At Saipan, thousands more perished in similar attacks. The mathematics are brutal and undeniable. American semi-automatic rifles like the M1 Garand can fire 40 to 50 aimed rounds per minute, while Japanese bolt-action Arisaka rifles manage only 15. In open combat, one American rifleman can match the firepower of 3 Japanese soldiers. So Japanese commanders adapt. Instead of charging into American guns in daylight, they perfect the art of nighttime infiltration. Small teams of soldiers, sometimes 5 men, sometimes 20, sometimes 100, move silently through jungle undergrowth to breach American perimeters before dawn. Once inside the wire, they target machine gun positions first, then turn captured American weapons against sleeping troops. The tactic is devastatingly effective. In March 1945, alone, The infiltration attacks kill or wound over 1,200 American soldiers across Luzon. The 33rd Infantry Division, McKinney's unit, has been fighting on Luzon since February 10, 1945. For 3 solid months, the division has clawed its way through some of the most hostile terrain in the Pacific Theater. The division's 123rd Infantry Regiment has taken particularly heavy casualties. By early May, exhaustion is universal. Soldiers stand guard for 4-hour shifts, then collapse into fitful sleep, knowing that Japanese infiltrators could breach the perimeter at any moment. The outpost near Dingalan Bay represents a strategic necessity and a tactical nightmare. American forces need to secure the eastern approaches to Manila, which means establishing defensive positions in dense jungle where visibility drops to 10 yards after sunset. Company A has been ordered to hold a hastily constructed perimeter around a critical supply route. The defensive line relies heavily on 2.30 caliber machine guns positioned to provide interlocking fields of fire. If either position falls, the entire perimeter collapses. By May 10, 1945, Private John McKinney has been in combat for 3 months. He's a quiet soldier, notable mainly for his exceptional marksmanship and his tendency to volunteer for the worst assignments. Officers appreciate his reliability. Fellow soldiers appreciate his humility. Nobody considers him particularly heroic. He's simply a competent rifleman who does his job without complaint. That night, McKinney stands his regular 4-hour guard shift at the machine gun position. It's miserable work. The humidity approaches 100%. The mosquitoes swarm constantly and the darkness is absolute. When his relief arrives at 3:30 a.m., McKinney gratefully steps away from the gun to catch a few hours of sleep before dawn. He finds a spot roughly 15 yards behind the emplacement, wraps himself in a shelter half, and closes his eyes. 17 minutes later, the Japanese attack begins. Intelligence will later reveal that this particular assault force, drawn from the remnants of the Japanese 105th Division, has been planning the raid for 6 days. They've observed American Guard rotations, identified the machine gun positions, and selected the exact moment when guard changes create brief vulnerabilities in the defensive line. 100 soldiers have moved into position with such perfect silence that American sentries detect nothing until the attack is already underway. When McKinney opens his eyes, a Japanese officer is standing over him with a raised saber. The blade descends. John Randolph McKinney was born on February 26, 1921 in Woodcliff, Georgia, a community so small it barely qualifies as a town. Woodcliff sits in Scriven County, hard against the South Carolina border, in country where pine forests stretch to the horizon and the nearest paved road is 12 miles away. The McKinney family makes their living as sharecroppers, which in rural Georgia during the Depression means grinding poverty punctuated by occasional hunger. Young John attends school irregularly. The harvest schedule takes precedence over education, and by the time he's 8 years old, he's working full days in the fields alongside his father. He completes 3rd grade, barely, before dropping out entirely at age 10. Reading remains a struggle for the rest of his life. Mathematics beyond basic arithmetic stays forever mysterious. Years later, Army literacy instructors will classify him as functionally illiterate. But John McKinney possesses a different kind of intelligence, one that develops not in classrooms but in the vast pine forests surrounding Woodcliff. By age 7, he's accompanying his father on hunting trips, learning to move silently through undergrowth, to read animal tracks, to estimate ranges instinctively. By age 10, he's hunting alone, bringing home squirrels and rabbits that keep his family fed when sharecropping income fails. By age 15, he's acknowledged throughout Scriven County as one of the finest shots anyone has ever seen. a natural marksman who can drop a running deer at 200 yards with an ancient, iron-sighted rifle. McKinney's hunting methodology develops through sheer necessity. His family can't afford to waste ammunition, so every shot must count. He learns to wait, hours if necessary, for the perfect firing angle. He learns to control his breathing, to squeeze triggers with agonizing patience, to maintain absolute stillness, even when insects crawl across his face. Most importantly, he learns to think like prey, anticipating movements before they happen, positioning himself not where animals are, but where they will be. In November 1942, with America fully committed to World War II and the draft sweeping through rural Georgia, 21-year-old John McKinney reports to the induction center in Savannah. The Army classification system immediately encounters a problem. McKinney can barely read the aptitude tests. He scores poorly on written examinations, fails basic mechanical comprehension questions, and struggles to follow multi-step written instructions. Under normal circumstances, he'd be classified for labor battalions or rejected entirely. Then the marksmanship instructor at basic training watches McKinney shoot. In a single demonstration session, the barely educated sharecropper's son places 48 rounds from an M1 Garand into a 4-inch group at 300 yards. The instructor, a grizzled sergeant who's trained thousands of recruits, has never seen anything like it. McKinney isn't just a good shot. He's operating at a level that typically requires years of competition shooting experience. The Army reconsiders. McKinney is assigned to infantry and shipped to the Pacific Theater, where his file notes two things: exceptional marksmanship and limited educational background. Nobody imagines that the second notation is irrelevant and the first will save 70 American lives. On the night of May 10, 1945, Private McKinney settles down to sleep, completely unaware that his childhood in the Georgia woods has perfectly prepared him for what's about to happen. The saber catches McKinney across the left side of his skull, a glancing blow that would have killed him if he hadn't shifted in his sleep at the last instant. Blood immediately obscures his vision. The Japanese officer raises the blade for a killing stroke. McKinney's response is pure instinct, honed by thousands of hours in Georgia forests. His right hand shoots out, closing on his M1 Garand rifle propped beside him. In a single fluid motion, later, he won't remember making a conscious decision. He swings the 8-pound weapon like a club, driving the hardwood stock into the officer's jaw with devastating force. Bone cracks. The Japanese soldier drops. McKinney doesn't pause to confirm the kill. Training and battlefield experience merge with hunting instincts developed over 20 years. Through blood-blurred vision, he processes the tactical situation in seconds. The machine gun position has fallen. 10 Japanese soldiers are wrestling the weapon around toward the American lines. Behind him, 50 yards distant, 70 of his comrades sleep unaware. If that machine gun opens fire into the perimeter, the massacre will be complete within minutes. He raises his M1 and charges. What happens next violates every tactical principle the Army teaches. The doctrine says a lone soldier never charges a fortified position. Doctrine says you wait for backup, call for artillery, coordinate with adjacent units. Doctrine says one man cannot retake a machine gun nest held by 10 enemy soldiers. John McKinney never read the doctrine manuals. He learned combat in a different school, Georgia forests, where one hunter learns to outthink and outmaneuver entire groups of prey. As he sprints toward the captured machine gun position, his childhood training takes over completely. He fires as he runs, controlled pairs, the way marksmanship instructors taught him, though McKinney is doing it at a dead sprint in near total darkness while bleeding from a head wound. The first Japanese soldier falls at 15 yards. The second drops at 10. McKinney leaps into the emplacement, as the remaining 8 enemy soldiers turn to face this impossible threat. The fight inside the machine gun nest lasts approximately 90 seconds. Later analysis, based on spent cartridges and ballistic evidence, reconstructs a combat sequence that military historians will study for decades. McKinney fires point blank, emptying his 8-round en-bloc clip in controlled bursts. When the clip pings free, he doesn't reload. At this range, against multiple opponents in confined space, the rifle becomes a club again. He swings the heavy Garand like an axe, the steel and wood crushing bone with each impact. 7 Japanese soldiers die in the emplacement. 3 more fall trying to flee. When McKinney finally pauses, breathing hard, blood still streaming from his scalp wound, the machine gun position is retaken, but the battle is far from over. In the darkness beyond the perimeter, Japanese officers are shouting orders. Grenades arc through the jungle, detonating with sharp cracks. Knee mortar rounds begin falling, the distinctive pop-whoosh crack that American soldiers have learned to dread. 45 yards distant, 2 Japanese mortar teams are zeroing in on the perimeter. McKinney estimates there are still 90 enemy soldiers between him and safety. He reloads. For the next 36 minutes, Private John McKinney fights a battle that military analysts will later describe as tactically impossible. The mathematics alone suggest he should die. Within the first 5 minutes, he's outnumbered 90-1. He's bleeding from a severe head wound. He's in an exposed position with limited ammunition and no communications with the main American force. Doctrine says he should fall back, consolidate, wait for reinforcements. Instead, McKinney does the most unexpected thing possible. He attacks. What follows is not courage in the conventional military sense. It's not the blind aggression of a banzai charge or the desperate last stand of a surrounded unit. It's something more calculated and infinitely more dangerous. A lone hunter methodically dismantling a numerically superior force using terrain, darkness, and perfect marksmanship. McKinney abandons the machine gun emplacement almost immediately. The position is now compromised. Every Japanese soldier in the area knows exactly where it is. Instead, he moves. He shifts position constantly, never firing more than 3 shots from the same location. He uses techniques learned while hunting white-tailed deer in Screven County. Advance 5 yards, pause, listen, advance again. Find natural concealment. Never silhouette against the sky. Keep the enemy guessing about your location and numbers. The Japanese soldiers, trained for coordinated mass assault, suddenly find themselves facing a phantom opponent who appears, kills, and vanishes. They fire wildly into the darkness, wasting ammunition on shadows. They bunch together for mutual support, exactly the wrong tactic against a skilled marksman. When they bunch, McKinney kills 3 or 4 with carefully aimed shots before shifting position again. His M1 Garand rifle provides a crucial advantage that transforms the engagement from suicide into survivable combat. The Japanese soldiers carry bolt-action Arisaka rifles, devastating weapons in skilled hands, but fundamentally limited by their 5-round capacity and manual operation. McKinney's M1 fires semi-automatically, delivering 8 rounds as fast as he can pull the trigger. In the time a Japanese soldier fires once, reloads, and fires again, McKinney can empty an entire clip. But ammunition remains finite. McKinney's combat load includes 80 rounds, 10 clips. He's already expended 1 clip in the initial charge. At his current rate of fire, he'll be empty within 15 minutes. Then he does something that seems suicidal, but reveals a profound tactical understanding. He advances toward Japanese positions to resupply from dead enemies. Multiple times during the engagement, McKinney actually moves forward into areas where Japanese soldiers have fallen, strips ammunition pouches from bodies, and withdraws before enemy troops can coordinate a response. It's breathtakingly dangerous. At one point, he's less than 20 yards from a group of 15 Japanese soldiers, but it extends his combat effectiveness indefinitely. The Japanese troops begin to break. The psychological pressure of fighting an invisible opponent who kills with mechanical precision proves overwhelming. Small groups attempt to withdraw, only to be cut down by McKinney's rifle. Others charge his last known position, only to discover he's already moved. The coordination that made their initial infiltration so dangerous disintegrates into individual survival attempts. 45 yards from McKinney's position, now the two Japanese mortar teams continue firing into the American perimeter. These weapons represent the greatest immediate threat to Company A. Each round falls among sleeping American soldiers, and each explosion risks mass casualties. McKinney can't reach the mortar positions directly. Too much open ground separates him from them, and the mortar men are protected by infantry support. So he employs a different tactic: systematic elimination of their infantry protection. He identifies where the supporting riflemen are positioned, then methodically kills them. It takes 11 shots. Every round a confirmed kill at ranges exceeding 75 yards in near darkness. When the last protective rifleman falls, the mortar crews are exposed. The Japanese mortarmen realize their situation and attempt to flee. McKinney drops both teams, 4 soldiers total, as they run. The mortar fire stops. The American perimeter is secure. As dawn begins to lighten the eastern sky, reinforcements from Company A finally reach McKinney's position. They find him standing calmly beside the recaptured machine gun, rifle in hand, blood dried across the left side of his face. Around him, scattered across 70 yards of jungle terrain, lie 40 dead Japanese soldiers. If you're appreciating this story of impossible courage, hit that like button and subscribe. This is the kind of forgotten history we research every week, and your support keeps these stories alive. Now, let's talk about the aftermath. When Captain James Morrison reaches McKinney's position at 4:23 a.m., he initially assumes he's walking into a massacre. The volume of gunfire that emanated from this sector over the past 40 minutes suggested a company-level engagement. Instead, he finds one soldier, calm and apparently unhurt, beyond the dried blood coating the left side of his head, methodically checking the captured machine gun for damage. Morrison conducts an immediate tactical assessment. His first priority is determining whether the Japanese force included additional elements that might launch a follow-up attack. He sends scouts forward and establishes defensive positions. Only then does he begin counting bodies. The count initially seems impossible. Morrison counts the dead around the machine gun emplacement, 10. He expands his search pattern, 15 more, 20 more. The bodies stretch across nearly 70 yards of jungle, and scattered in patterns that suggest not a single defensive position, but a mobile engagement. Someone moving constantly, engaging from multiple locations. At 5:47 a.m., as full daylight reveals the complete battlefield, Morrison completes his count: 38 Japanese soldiers dead around the machine gun position, 2 more beside a destroyed mortar emplacement 45 yards distant. 40 confirmed enemy dead. 1 American soldier, McKinney, with a single non-life-threatening injury. The mathematical improbability staggers Morrison. He conducts interviews with McKinney and with the machine gunners who were wounded in the initial assault. He examines spent cartridge casings, bullet impacts, and the positions of enemy bodies. He consults with his company first sergeant, who has 20 years of military experience. They reach the same conclusion. What happened here is unprecedented. Morrison's after-action report, filed on May 12, 1945, includes language rarely seen in official military documents. Private McKinney's actions defy conventional tactical analysis. He single-handedly thwarted an assault force 10 times his size, prevented the capture of a critical defensive position, and likely saved the lives of every man in Company A. His marksmanship under extreme combat stress represents the highest level of small arms proficiency witnessed by this officer in 3 years of combat operations. The report travels up the command chain with remarkable speed. By May 15th, it's on the desk of Major General Percy Clarkson, commanding officer of the 33rd Infantry Division. Clarkson has been in the Army for 26 years and has personally witnessed acts of extraordinary valor from Bataan to Luzon. He reads Morrison's report 3 times, then orders a full investigation. The investigation includes forensic analysis of the battlefield, testimony from multiple witnesses, and detailed interviews with McKinney himself. The investigators discover several elements that make the engagement even more remarkable. McKinney's total ammunition expenditure was approximately 48 rounds, meaning his hit rate exceeded 80% in near total darkness, while bleeding from a head wound, against moving targets at ranges up to 75 yards. Modern combat statistics suggest that the average infantry engagement requires 50,000 rounds fired to achieve 1 enemy casualty. McKinney achieved 40 confirmed kills with 48 rounds. The Japanese assault force was drawn from elite troops, combat veterans with extensive training in night infiltration tactics. These weren't conscripts or poorly trained reserves. They were professional soldiers executing a carefully planned attack. That McKinney defeated them so decisively speaks to both his individual skill and the complete tactical surprise his response generated. McKinney's head wound, inflicted by the saber strike, should have incapacitated him. Medical examination after the battle reveals a 4-inch laceration across his scalp that exposed bone and caused significant blood loss. That he fought effectively while suffering from such an injury suggests either extraordinary pain tolerance or an adrenaline response so intense that it completely overrode normal physiological limitations. On May 23, 1945, General Clarkson personally recommends McKinney for the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration awarded by the United States. The recommendation emphasizes not just courage, but the profound tactical impact of McKinney's actions. Private McKinney's defense of the Dingalan Bay outpost prevented the annihilation of Company A and preserved the integrity of the regimental defensive line. His actions, conducted single-handedly against overwhelming odds, represent the highest traditions of military service and demonstrate extraordinary heroism above and beyond the call of duty. The Medal of Honor recommendation faces no opposition, no bureaucratic delays, no questions about the validity of witness testimony. When senior officers read McKinney's citation, the unanimous response is immediate approval. Too often in war, heroism occurs with few witnesses and must be reconstructed from fragmentary evidence. McKinney's stand is different. 40 bodies tell a story that requires no embellishment. On January 23, 1946, Private John McKinney, promoted to sergeant following the engagement, stands in the Oval Office of the White House. President Harry S. Truman, flanked by senior military officials, reads the Medal of Honor citation aloud. The room includes 3 other recipients being honored the same day, along with approximately 30 witnesses, military personnel, government officials, and journalists. Truman reaches the final lines of the citation by his indomitable spirit, extraordinary fighting ability, and unwavering courage in the face of tremendous odds. Private McKinney saved his company from possible annihilation and set an example of unsurpassed intrepidity. He places the Medal of Honor around McKinney's neck, then does something unusual. He grips the young sergeant's shoulders and speaks directly to him, off script. "Son," Truman says, "this citation doesn't do justice to what you accomplished. 40 enemy soldiers, one night, by yourself." He pauses. That's not just courage. That's something I don't think we have a word for yet. The ceremony concludes. Photographers capture the moment. The next day, McKinney's photo appears in newspapers across America, with headlines celebrating the one-man battalion and Georgia farmboy defeats 100 enemy soldiers. For approximately 72 hours, John McKinney is the most famous soldier in America. Then he does something that surprises everyone who's covered his story. He goes home to Georgia, refuses all interview requests, declines multiple opportunities to profit from his fame, and returns to the life he left in 1942, hunting, fishing, and farming in Screven County. The story doesn't end with the medal ceremony. McKinney's tactical innovations influenced how modern soldiers are trained for close-quarters combat. If you want to learn more about the weapons and tactics that made this victory possible, check out our detailed breakdown video linked in the description. Now, let's discuss McKinney's legacy. John McKinney returned to Woodcliff, Georgia in March 1946 and lived there until his death on April 5, 1997, 51 years of deliberate obscurity. He worked various jobs: farmhand, logger, maintenance worker, and consistently refused requests for interviews, documentary appearances, or public speaking engagements. When asked about the night of May 11, 1945, his standard response was always the same: "I did what needed doing." His reluctance to discuss his Medal of Honor action frustrated historians and journalists for decades. In 1983, a military historian tracked McKinney down and spent 3 days trying to secure an interview. McKinney declined. When pressed about why, he gave an answer that reveals his character completely. "Those boys in Company A went home to their families because of what happened that night. That's enough for me. I don't need people making a fuss." But McKinney's legacy extends far beyond one night in the Philippine jungle. Military analysts studying his engagement identified tactical principles that have since been incorporated into modern infantry doctrine. His technique of constant movement between firing positions, never shooting more than 3 rounds from the same location, is now taught to Army snipers and designated marksmen. His use of darkness and terrain to multiply his effectiveness against superior numbers appears in Special Forces training manuals. His mental discipline, the ability to maintain precise marksmanship while severely wounded and under extreme stress, remains the gold standard for combat performance under pressure. The 33rd Infantry Division suffered 2,811 casualties during the Luzon campaign. Company A, McKinney's unit, sustained 73 casualties, but none on the night of May 11, 1945. Those 70 men went home to wives, children, and parents who never knew how close their loved ones came to dying in their sleep. In 1987, a group of Company A veterans tracked down McKinney at his home in Screven County. They presented him with a plaque that read simply, "Because of you, we came home." McKinney kept the plaque in a drawer. He never displayed it. Today, a 23-mile stretch of Georgia State Route 21 through Screven County bears the name John R. A McKinney Medal of Honor Highway. The dedication ceremony in 1999, held 2 years after McKinney's death, was attended by over 200 veterans, including 17 men from Company A. One veteran speaking at the ceremony captured McKinney's impact with profound simplicity. "John didn't just save our lives that night, he saved every life we went on to touch. Our children, our grandchildren, the businesses we built, the communities we served, all of it traces back to one Georgia farm boy who refused to let us die." Military historians estimate that McKinney's defense of the Dingalan Bay outpost prevented between 60 and 70 American deaths and preserved the integrity of the regimental defensive line during a critical phase of the Luzon campaign. But perhaps the most important legacy is simpler. John McKinney proved that extraordinary heroism doesn't require formal education, elite training, or specialized skills. Sometimes it only requires a man who knows what needs doing and refuses to quit until it's done. The farm boy from Woodcliff, who could barely read, wrote his legacy in action, and that legacy endures.